But it was when I picked up the Course in Miracles, which doesn't claim to be for everybody, but if it's for you, you know it. What I got from the Course in Miracles, and I was in my mid-20s at the time, I'm not saying that this had not been in other things that I read, but for whatever reason, I didn't get it from other things I'd read. And that's that there is no coming to God except through the person in front of you. That is, the Course in Miracles says belief in God doesn't mean anything. It's the experience of God. And the experience of God is our love for each other. I love how in the Course it says some people conspire with God who do not yet believe in him. It's like you and I were talking before about atheism and so forth. So I learned that loving other people, everything is secondary, and my capacity to reach across the wall that separates me from others through my own judgment, through my own attack thoughts, through my own failure to take responsibility, self-righteousness or whatever, that work on myself is the spiritual work.
To prepare yourself so that you are able to feel God or love or whatever word's convenient in your relationships with other people. This is
the experience of God.
More. Tell us more.
Well, the Course in Miracles says there is no getting to heaven. It says heaven is entered 2 by 2. You cannot get there unless you take someone with you. And heaven is not a condition or a place, but an awareness of our oneness. Yeah. So the Course is not trying to get us to believe in God. It's trying to get us to believe in each other. If you're in front of me, you're my spiritual lesson, and you're my path to God. The Course says everyone you meet will either be your crucifier or your savior, depending on what you choose to be to them.
On my own, like just literally on my own, moment to moment, I feel like a lot of my life was somehow this ossification of loneliness, of dreadful solitude, pain of loneliness. I revisit it somehow, often when alone, even briefly, intermittently, like, I arrive here, it's late, I go to the room and I feel sort of headachy and post-flighty and alone. And I have to remember that when I talk to other people, if I prepare myself in the manner in which you have described, that I will feel God and love in other people, even in just incidental communication, like when I talk to a person, excuse me, do you know if there's any yoga here? And the person really takes, let me try and find it. And I think, people are beautiful. Sometimes on my own I get pretty scared, like that I feel like, I'm going to be attacked, or people won't be beautiful, or the world won't take care of me. Have you over time been able to cultivate a sense of this faith in God through relationships that is sustainable even in periods of solitude, suffering, pain and endurance?
Yes.
How did that happen? And when have been these times of pain, I wonder, when was the time of wilderness for you, or the garden?
I wrote a book called Tears to Triumph, which is exactly about that, about the application of spiritual principles to human despair. One of the issues that has been that I've been very passionate about is talking about the sociopathic economics and how even human pain will be turned into a profit center if there's money to be made for some corporation. I'm very concerned about what I think of as the psychotherapeutic, psychopharmacological industrial complex, which has chosen, for the sake of a billion-dollar industry, to medicalize human despair. And the truth of the matter is depression, and I'm not talking about bipolar or schizophrenia. That's outside my lane, outside my purview. But the normal spectrum of human despair is my lane, because the real spiritual path does not just take a yellow smiley face like this and put it over everything, go be happy, be happy. Buddha would not have begun his path of enlightenment until he crossed his father's walls and saw suffering for the first time. Moses was sent by God to the Israelites because they were suffering in Egypt as slaves, and Jesus suffered on the cross. So the real spiritual outlook recognizes the suffering of the human condition when we're living outside the context of our love for each other. So that, if you had a heartbreak, a divorce, financial failure, bankruptcy, lost someone you loved, these things are painful, but they're not mental illnesses. And that's why in that book I write, this is what Buddhism says, this is what the Old Testament says, this is what the New Testament says. AA or anything else, that's why you keep coming back, because it's a rough day today. It's recognized it's a rough day today. It's recognized it's a rough day today. And if you're left on your own, God knows what your mind might lead you to do. So when you know principles, whatever your path is, and you practice them. So you asked about myself. Okay, Marianne, and I've lived 2 periods of time that by any means today would be called clinical depression. But even that's such a scam. All that means is somebody in a clinic said it. There is no blood test, right? But if you've been there, you know it. Okay, Marianne, number one, you don't even think this is going to be done quickly. So none of this, like, just, today people say, well, your mother died a month ago. Aren't you over it yet? No. Okay, it's going to take time. Number two, who are the safe people who can accompany you on this? Who are the people who will bear witness to your agony during this time? What are the things that you're going to need to support you? Make sure you have a lot of bubble bath. Make sure that you stay with your meditation, even though you don't want to. Stay with your prayer work. Make sure you show up for other people. You will have a tendency to isolate during this period of time. You must not do that. You must get up and work. Your subconscious will put aside your despair while you're showing up for other people. And then when you come back from that, you'll go back to crying again. There is an art to navigating despair. There is an art to navigating depression, and the spiritual principles lead us there. There are seasons of life. I quote in that book from Rilke where he says, "Let me not squander the hour of my pain."